I am so excited to come back live on Rebel Radio and invite my new guest, Debi Silber. Welcome to the show. I am so glad that you're here today.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I look forward to these conversations every week. It's my favorite day of the week, Rebel Radio Day. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Tell us more about that doctor at the beginning of your name.
Sure. Well, I am the founder and CEO of the PBT, Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute. And I said betrayal. It's my 30th year in business, and I don't know of anybody who studies betrayal because they just want to. You study it because you have to. So I've been in health, mindset, personal development, and then had a really painful betrayal from my family. And then a few years later from my husband. And I was like, okay, I got him out of the house, and I'm like, something similar here, in addition to me. And I realized boundaries were always getting crossed, never took my own needs seriously. So it's time. So here I was, 50 years old, 4 kids, 6 dogs, thriving business. Like, I'm going back for a PhD in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation. And because I was changing, I didn't quite understand it. He was too, was ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my business, my family, my life.
Wow. Quite the journey. I'm just trying to still wrap my head around 4 kids and 6 dogs.
It wasn't easy writing papers with all that going on.
Right. Sure. That just sounds like a lot of chaos happening outside. Yeah.
It's nutty.
So before we went live, I shared a little bit of your numerology with you, which you were so excited about. I love that. And I'm curious, what was one of your biggest takeaways from that information that I shared?
I love, you mentioned the spiritual component, and I am very spiritual, but you also said that it was challenging growing up. I've always been this way, and it was very challenging. So that just nailed it. And I also, the whole idea that I'm very black or very white, very to the extremes, I didn't think I was, but I have to take another look.
Yeah, that's curious. And ruling number 11s have a tendency to think they're not. And then everyone that I meet, they go and explore that and they go, oh yeah, I kind of am.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I love that. So good. So tell us a little bit about your journey and tell us a little bit more about this betrayal and how this idea of self-mastery may have supported you through that.
Yeah. This was one of those things that I remember going through the program saying, if I can heal from this, I'm taking everybody with me.
Right.
There's just no other way of moving through something. Integrity is my highest value. So you can imagine someone with a value that integrity is the most important thing there is, and something like betrayal. Like, there wasn't one cell of me that was okay with anything like that.
Yeah.
So the injustice was just eating me up alive. And I was like, I have to do something so big. And it's going to sound so selfish, but just healing myself and my family wasn't enough. Right. It was like, we have to do something so big with this. And I'm looking back now, and that's really been one of the biggest motivators. And it's amazing. I mean, now the PBT Institute we're helping thousands of people. So we're doing something really good with something bad.
Oh, I love that so much, because we were saying this before we went live, is that we all go through certain struggles and lessons in life. And I think we owe it to society to move our learnings out into the world in whatever way, even if it's just in your immediate family, but to teach and move that information out. So for me, I'm an ex-cocaine addict and have stepped into a new level of self-mastery that I never thought possible. And, wealth activation. Wait, what? A drug addict would have never thought that possible. Yeah. And so now I can come from that perspective and those things that I've learned along the way and share that story. It's like, if I can do it, if an ex-cocaine addict can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, otherwise it's like a bad game of hot potato. It's like it falls on you, and that's where it lands and stays. I mean, you've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to heal and then pass it forward. I didn't do anything anybody else couldn't do. I was just like, no, this is, and especially when the discoveries were made, I'm like, how do you go back to business as usual?
Yeah, you can't. You can't unknow the things you learn.
Yeah, and it was time to share them, and it's been an amazing gift.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So this concept of self-mastery, I feel like this is a term that nobody really knows how to define because it's not something that's solidified. And
Mhm.
I'm curious, what does self-mastery mean to you?
I love that question. To me, it really means um, you knowing who you are and creating the highest and best version of you, featuring that.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody has their own reason for being here.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, you get yourself to your physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual best, teaching, sharing what it is you're uniquely qualified to offer and give. I think that's self mastery.
I love that. And one of the things that you brought into the conversation was your number one value being integrity, which, by the way, is one of my top values as well.
Mhm.
No wonder we're on a show together.
Yeah.
But I think just understanding your top three values is one perfect way to discover self mastery and like making decisions in alignment with those values instead of
Mhm.
doing all the obligations and expectations of other people. I think that's
Mhm.
so powerful.
You're right. I've the older I get, the more I realize my body is telling me if something is a yes or a no. And if I ignore it, it backfires every single time.
Yep.
So, if it's not in complete alignment, it's just simply a no. And now that I'm really honoring and respecting that, I'm saying no to things that would just pull me away from my
Mhm.
priorities or from what I'm trying to do. And this way, I'm harnessing that time, that energy, really to focus on what it is that's meaningful to me.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's like decision making 101, right?
Mhm.
Know what's most important to you and make decisions in alignment with that. It's really
Yeah.
quite simple. I just find that a lot of we don't do that in society because of the obligations and the I shoulds and all of those pieces. I think that's really the key. If you know who you are and what you want and why you want it, easy.
Well, that's it. And it's like I'll look at decision making as first I'll do a body check. And your body will
Mhm.
let you know. I mean, does it feel open, expansive, light, or is it tight, constricted, closed? Does it not? You'll just get such a strong sense. And then, will this provide impact with the people I'm trying to reach? I mean, it's got to have some benefit there.
Yeah.
It does it just feel good for, even if it just feels good to serve, to give, that's terrific, but it's got to have something behind it. And if
Yeah.
not, I'd rather just donate that same amount of time somewhere else.
Absolutely. I love that you bring the body into the conversation as well. Our bodies are incredibly powerful and they teach us so much, but we don't listen to them. We've been taught to numb it, dumb it, drug it, alcohol it, Netflix it, all the things, feed it.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important piece to remember is to listen to the body. Our bodies are sending messages to us all the time.
Yeah. And it's such an important point. I did 2 TEDx talks, and one of them speaks just to that. Stop sabotaging yourself. But one of the discoveries was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many of us do, if we're going to fully heal, we're going to move through 5 now proven predictable stages. And we even know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. There happens to be a stage, and it's stage 3. That's where we numb, avoid, distract. That's where we use all of those things. And that's why most people, you and I both know, get stuck and stay stuck in that stage 3.
To me, it sounds like you're talking about the law of divine timing, and that stuck stage is the refusal to take responsibility for ourselves.
It's a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it because when we have our story, we get to be right. We have someone to blame. We get a target for our anger. We don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Should I trust you? Can I trust you? I forget. I won't trust anybody. That's just one of the components that get us deeply rooted and planted in this stage. And then, of course, when we're there, the longer we're there, well, then we're like, well, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you're not all that great. Maybe this, maybe that. And then like energy attracts like energy. So now you're calling situations and circumstances and people towards you to confirm, yep, this is where you belong. And it's
Right?
worse and worse and worse. And we do that and then We do. We start numbing, avoiding, distracting. Then you start doing that for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, right? A
Mhm.
year, 10 years, 20 years. I can honestly see someone 20 years out and say, that drinking that you're doing, the drugging you're doing, the emotional eating, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. And they would
Right.
say, but that happened 20 years ago. Doesn't matter. All they
No.
did was put themselves in this holding pattern
Yeah.
and stayed
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly. It's that taking responsibility and stepping out of that drama triangle and choosing not to be a victim anymore and
Yeah.
just allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling and forgive and let go. And so that you can step into the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Ugh, love it so much. So, how has this level of self mastery supported you as an entrepreneur? You say you've been an entrepreneur for 30 years now.
Mhm.
How has that supported you?
Think about it. The life of an entrepreneur is just one big guessing game. Right?
Yep.
You're like, I mean, I have put out more products, more programs, more, the beauty is I'm the best mentor ever. I can shorten anyone's learning curve. But you get a sense for, and I noticed this, the products, the programs, even who I was back then, I'm using everything that worked and letting go of everything that no longer serves. And as you do, you're really creating something that is the highest and best expression of yourself. And I think when we're in business for ourselves, they are a unique expression. And if they don't show up that way, it's just not going to work.
Ah, so
I don't know
good.
if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, another question that we love to ask at Rebel Radio as a wealth activator, it's very important to us and my audience to talk about wealth, but from the state of it's not just about money.
Mhm.
Wealth to me is all encompassing, but I also feel like wealth is defined differently by everyone. So, I
Mhm.
am curious, what does wealth mean to you?
Yeah. You know, I think wealth really represents the clarity that you've conveyed over what you do. Because
Mm,
when it's clear and when it's defined and when it's unique, you're rewarded for that.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In more ways than one, right? Money is one of them.
One expression
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I've always said is that money is just a measurement of the flow that you've created in your life.
Mhm.
And when you know and you have that clarity and you're creating at the fullest expression of you, you're creating flow. And so
Mhm.
money is just a side effect of that saying, good job,
Yeah.
you're in flow.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So good. So, this is where my audience or my guests love it because I get to the one thing questions. What is one thing that you wish every entrepreneur knew?
Ugh. That you know what? The first thing that comes to mind is the roadblocks will appear, and I believe they show up to show how committed you are.
Mm,
Because it is so easy to just say, "This is just too hard. Forget it." It's and I really feel like it's when you look at the ones, who've really sustained or who've excelled, they found a way over through, every single roadblock, and, they
yeah.
didn't use that to stop them.
Yeah, it's that level of persistence and commitment, right? That I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can put a rock in front of me. I'll figure out how to get around it. I'm not
That's
going to go over it, but going to go around it.
That's it for sure, for
Yeah.
sure, because those things will come up. And it's
Yeah.
also, so it's a test to see how committed you are. It's also it's to see how committed you are to making it work and to see how much you like your product, your program,
Mm,
your service.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. And I think the tendency sometimes is to be like, oh, the universe must not want me to have that. And so we just give up and step
Mhm.
back, right? Whereas it's more of like, come on, you can do hard things too.
Yeah. And it's also, you have to know the difference between these things showing up to see how committed you are and signs showing you this direction needs a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah, it's okay to pivot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So good. So, what's something you've discovered about yourself on this entrepreneurial journey that's really helped you to grow?
Yeah. That life experiences come into your life to help you grow. And when you use them that way, it's trauma well served.
Trauma well served. I like that. Yes, there's a reason for it.
100%. And when you experience these things and then incorporate them into your business, your highest expression of you, you're better, wiser, stronger because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute with current events. Because I
Mhm.
think right now the world is in a collective betrayal.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we look to the news or outside of ourselves and what's going on, there's confusion. Nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah.
Everything and everyone is lying, and there's no integrity.
Right.
Can you speak to the audience about that and how to best navigate what's happening right now?
Yeah, and I can speak to it personally as a highly sensitive empath, which
Mhm.
means I feel everything and so deeply and feel everybody else's pain. So it's a really challenging time, of course, for the people who are physically experiencing all this craziness and the people who are just feeling all of this craziness. And from a spiritual standpoint, it's almost like you step all the way back and you say, like, why the heck is all of this happening? And it's almost like it all has to be broken down so that it can be rebuilt so much better,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
But it's like you just to watch and witness just the level of chaos and how people are treating each other. But then again, I think it's times like this you see the best and the worst in people. And
Mhm.
there are so many who are showing up so powerfully and fully, and then others who are not. And I always like to look and sort of project ahead, and then look back and say, how did I handle myself and those around me during this time? Could I
Mhm.
show up better, differently? Could I offer something better, different? What can I do? And when you look ahead and then you look back, it gives you a time right in the here and now to make some changes that could help people.
Yeah, I love that so much. And yeah, I love the perspective of, it needs to fall apart so that we can rebuild something new. And from a universal laws perspective, I see that as entropy and evolution. And
Mhm.
entropy will just happen naturally. We don't need to do anything to perpetuate it. We can just let it happen and not focus on it. And so, don't spend hours in front of the TV watching the news. It's just falling apart. So let it fall apart and
And
focus on what you want.
exactly. And there, but it's a time, just send light and love because it is so needed. It's so needed. I mean,
Yes.
even just COVID, I mean, you just take that one thing that's going on. I had it, I think I had it twice, and I lost people I loved, right? So, but it's like,
Mhm.
how do you move through these crazy times? You can't really plan anything because you
No.
don't know what's happening. So it's like, how do that image comes to mind. It's like when the tree is rigid and unbending, it breaks. If
Yeah.
it's a little more flexible, it bends. And I think that's what we have to do more of right now.
Absolutely. And yes, more love. I mean, bringing it back to the body, we have the ability to generate love in our body. And the more that we focus on that and bring our awareness to it, we're moving that out into the world. And it
Yeah.
has this ripple effect of in your immediate circle. You go to the grocery store and you're nice to the checkout girl.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you are coming from that place of love, it's having that impact and that ripple effect.
And you never know how it impacts somebody. Like
Yeah.
when I'm walking down a street, like a busy street, I will like silently say something really kind or something to people that I'm walking past. And you can tell they receive it.
Yep.
You can tell they feel it. When I was speaking, I mean, now my speaking is kind of at a standstill except for online, but I would
Mhm.
go into a room and stand on the stage. And before I went out there, I would beam so much love out there to everybody, and it was a much more welcoming,
Yeah.
audience because of it. People feel this. It's
Oh, yeah.
real.
Oh, yeah. I work with an energy called quantum expansion, and this is something that we've been experimenting with. And some of my students, I've sent them out, you're going to go to gymnastics with your daughter. And she was having troubles with some of the women at gymnastics. I said, just run Q while you're there. And she reported back, she's like, it was amazing because
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was like everybody around her could feel it. They didn't
Mhm.
know what was going on from a mental perspective,
Yeah.
but we can feel it and we recognize that and we mirror that back. And so we
Oh,
can't
it's
help
real.
but like start smiling. Like, I don't know what that is, but it feels good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Debbie, I could talk to you all day. This has been such a pleasurable conversation. But as always, we end the show with one last question. What do you dream of for the world?
Ugh. I would love to be able to prevent betrayal, but second best would be, as AA is known for alcohol, the PBT Institute is known for just getting your job done. These are the training wheels until you don't need them. You don't have to struggle and suffer in silence. You can get your job done so you could be there for the people that you love. And my wish is just that people just know that they don't have to be in such deep pain.
Mm, yes, we don't need to suffer.
Mm-mm.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.